Hi, I had to come on here today to talk about the interview that Elon Musk had with President Donald Trump last night. When I got on X this morning, I saw all of these negative headlines from our media about how bad the interview was. Now, if you didn't listen to the interview, you would think that Donald Trump said he was going to do something to everybody in the world. Let me tell you what it was. I sat there, and I normally don't listen to speeches or interviews, but I sat there and I listened to the entire thing, and it was really quite amazing. And I would implore any politician to say the same thing. If you want people to vote for you, then you need to address issues that are important to people. And so instead of the Democrat Party constantly bashing Donald Trump, you know what they need to do? This is what I say to them. You say the same things. You address the same issues. You address inflation. You address the war. You address freedom of speech that you guys are trying so hard to remove from everyone. When you address those same issues, or if you address those same issues, then your party platform would be about issues and not about Donald Trump. It is the weirdest thing to me. And then people fall for it. When I was reading the comments, I was like, I just listened to this whole thing and I couldn't believe I did, but I did. I said, but you know why I listened to the whole thing? Because he talked about things that were important to Americans. Democrats, start talking about things that are important to Americans and stop pandering.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the Kamala Harris campaign, who is currently upset and melting down like the rest of the mainstream liberal media over the interview that Elon Musk and Trump did last night that went super duper mega viral. Okay, it seems as if the Kamala campaign is not taking this too well, and you have CNN panels erupting right into full-blown meltdowns over Trump's interview with Elon last night. Take a look.
The Harris campaign wasted no time firing back at Trump after his interview with Musk. In response to the live stream on X, the Harris campaign released a statement saying, quote, Trump's entire campaign is in service of people like Elon Musk and himself, self-obsessed rich guys who will sell out the middle class and who cannot run a live stream in the year 2024.
This third-rate phony candidate, don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden.
It's like watching Grumpy Old Man or something. I don't mind attacking a person for their policies or their positions, but he's just sort of griping just because she exists, to your point. And I think we know why he's griping, because she exists. She's a black woman. And everything that I've seen in the course of his career, and I know that he has black women in his circle, and I know he's appointed Omarosa and all of that. I know all of that background. But I also know when he's confronted and being held accountable by black women, time and time again, he is shown to be someone who is uncomfortable in that situation. And I think he's complaining more because it's Kamala Harris, a black woman, than any other factor.
There's nothing that he's saying about her, however, that wasn't actually said by Biden campaign personnel in leaks to the press for months and months before the hot swap unfolded. For literally about 3+ years, you had folks around President Biden who were leaking against, undermining, characterizing Kamala Harris as a disastrous, underprepared.
How do you know this?
Because of extensive reporting, and drawing on White House sources.
How come former President Trump doesn't know this? If you've known for 3 years this woman was coming, and now she's here, and you're confused about what to do.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sufficiently clear. What I'm saying is that what he is saying now, when he is diminishing her capacity and what have you, these were all things that were standard talking points coming from Democrats who were anxious about her weaknesses. Now, only over the last month or so has the narrative entirely changed about this, because the press no longer felt obliged to protect President Biden.
Are you suggesting then this is originating because Donald Trump is following the intel of Democrats, and this is based solely upon the intel of Democrats and not some long-standing representation of how he feels about American people since the 1970s?
Okay, I think what he's suggesting is that this is not just off of what Democrats have said, but Democrats have also said some of the same things Trump has said. And so him saying these things is not something new that no one's ever said before, that she's incompetent. And you can point to the policies. You can look at so many policies throughout this administration that she has to own that will hurt her in swing states.
The idea, just to be clear, I mean, I understand that maybe there were some Democrats privately who were nervous about Harris, but I don't know that you have Democrats calling her phony, incompetent, a third-rate candidate.
That's what I was about to say.
That is well
I must have
beyond.
missed where Democrats called her a bum. I must have missed where they questioned her ethnicity. I must have missed when Democrats called her low IQ and stupid, and all of the litany of awful insults that Donald Trump has levied against Kamala Harris since she's been in the race.
But did you miss when she
forget
couldn't
that
even get a couple percentage points in 2020 to make it to the first primary?
This isn't the first time Donald
She
Trump
wasn't wildly popular.
It doesn't matter. She's the vice president of the United States, and she's beating Donald Trump right now. So, but what also we are
all
not,
that matters is what
also
happens
we're
on
forgetting
November 5th.
is that Donald Trump's history of insulting women is very long. As a matter of fact,
and her history of failing
is
long as well when it comes to these policies that
how
matter.
many times when he was at the bully pulpit, he insulted women
what we know
journalists
is that
repeatedly, including you, Abby, who he also called stupid, which you're not. You went to Harvard, and you are far from that. And this is what Donald Trump does. He doesn't like to be held accountable. So because he is now in a position where he now is being held accountable for what he said, we know already that he has a history of being a sexist, and now he cannot
This is base
grapple
management.
with the fact.
These are not the arguments that are actually effective for Kamala Harris. If you
no?
look at the
Why is
recent,
she up
for
11
example,
points?
Reid Hoffman's group Blueprint has described what is effective for Kamala Harris. What is effective for her is taking positions that are the positions that would be endorsed by Joe Manchin and by Bernie Sanders, being perfectly down the line. I will protect Social Security and Medicare. It is not actually attacking Trump. What you guys are doing right now is, helpful base management right now, but it actually isn't something that moves the needle. What you see is actually this kind of base management doesn't actually have much of a material effect. Anti-Trump arguments are actually so played out, so tired, that they're actually not moving the needle.
Yeah, so that was an extremely heated panel on CNN, right? And you could tell the people who are actually on the side of common sense and rationality, and those who are just extremely Trump deranged. Oh, he's Trump racist. He said something bad about a black woman. We don't like it. Oh, he's so hateful. He's sexist. Yada, yada, yada. Right? Now, again, the point that the conservatives were making on the panel was that, hey, Trump's not saying anything about Kamala Harris that the Democrats don't say about Kamala Harris behind closed doors, okay? Because this is the same party that struggled to endorse Kamala Harris for vice president just a year ago, okay? I mean, if they actually believed that Kamala Harris was competent, Kamala Harris would have already staged a coup against Joe Biden 2 years ago, right? The whole party would have couped Joe Biden 2 years ago. He would have been gone, right? That was the original plan. The original plan was for Joe Biden to be out, right, after 2 years, and for Kamala to take over. But because she's so bad, she's so terrible, that Joe Biden literally had to melt down on the world stage in order for Democrats to replace him. And when they decided to replace him, they didn't even want Kamala to be the replacement, right? I think the only reason she got the nomination is because Joe Biden endorsed her after he dropped out as an FU to the Democrats, to Obama and Nancy Pelosi for pushing him out in the first place. Now, here's another secret that the mainstream liberal media doesn't want to talk about. Kamala's campaign is not doing that well, okay? They are severely underperforming where Democrats were performing in 2016 and 2020, and that is a very, very, very bad sign for Kamala Harris, because that suggests there aren't that many people that are excited to vote for her as the mainstream liberal media would like you to believe. Also, what they want you to believe is that, well, Trump in his campaign is collapsing. And that's also not true, because Trump's approval is actually higher than it's ever been, right? Ever, right? Trump is the most popular that he's ever been, but yet the media, if you watch them, you be thinking the exact opposite. You think that, well, Trump is, he's falling apart, right? People are abandoning Trump and going to Kamala Harris. But that's just not true when you look at the actual numbers and the data. It tells you that, hey, Democrats might not want to celebrate too quickly, okay? Because this thing is far from over, and Kamala Harris is not doing nearly as good as she should be doing.
I want to take a step back and sort of point out we've kind of been here before. So August 13th, how far were the polls off in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin? and this is in 2016 and 2020. Trump was estimated both times around and by significant margins. Take a look here. In 2016, the average poll in those states that I mentioned, those Great Lake battleground states, Trump was underestimated by 9 points on average at this point in 2016. How about 2020? It wasn't a one-off. Look at this. He was underestimated by 5 points on average. And of course, Kamala Harris's advantage in those New York Times Siena College polls were 4 points in each of these key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. The bottom line is this. If you have any idea, if you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to rip open the champagne bottle, pop that cork, do not do it. Donald Trump is very much in this race. If we have a polling shift like we've seen in prior years from now until the final result, Donald Trump would actually win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that he is very much in this ballgame based upon where he is right now and compare that to where he was in prior years.
Yeah, and again, this is why conservatives should not be panicking. Okay, there's a lot of doom and gloom. People say, oh, Trump's advisors. Oh, Trump needs to change his strategy. Oh, Trump needs to do it. No. The strategy is the same strategy that the Republicans that Trump used against Biden, right? Which is to talk about the fact that, hey, this person is not answering any questions, first and foremost, because that speaks to their competence and their ability to lead. And then second of all, to stick with the policies, right? And to talk about the disaster that this administration has been. Now, Trump historically has underperformed in the polls. This is something I've reminded you guys almost every single time that I've talked about polls, which is that the proper way to read them is to take whatever number they give Trump and to bump it up by 2, 3, 4. And in this case, CNN is suggesting up to 9 points, right? In which they could be off, right? On average, specifically in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. That's a big deal. That seems to suggest that these polling firms have issues actually getting Trump supporters to respond to the polls, or maybe you have some people that are closet Trump supporters that are not comfortable telling people that they support Trump. We know for a fact that this effect exists, right? So right now, again, that's why I'm not super concerned at all. I'm like, I think we're in good shape, right? We're in really good shape considering how Kamala Harris hasn't faced any criticism. She hasn't answered any questions. She hasn't faced any type of adversity, but yet she is severely underperforming Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. Okay, and also on top of that, you always have to account for the fact that the polls don't do a good job at really measuring Trump's support.
We've certainly heard the Harris campaign saying we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely.
This is definitely not over. All right, let's talk about enthusiasm and how that translates actually. We are quite a ways out, again, 3 months about.
Yeah, yesterday I was mentioning, the enthusiasm for the Democratic ticket was up.
Yeah.
But that enthusiasm is not the same thing as going out to actually vote. And there's a different question, which essentially says, how certain are you actually going to go out and vote? And this is the top range. Almost certain to vote. Again, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. Look at this. Look at Kamala Harris now compared to where Joe Biden was back in May. In fact, 62% of Joe Biden voters said they were almost certain to turn out and vote. Now,
it's gone down.
It's actually gone down a little bit. I would call this in the same general area at 61%. But it's basically unchanged. And look at Donald Trump. He was at 58% in May. He's actually gone up a little bit now. He's at 60% now. Again, basically no real change. So the bottom line here is, yes, there may be more enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, but the fact is we're not seeing that necessarily translate in the almost certain vote. And one little other note, Sarah, I will note this. Donald Trump is more popular today than he was on August 13th in either 2020 or 2016. So the bottom line is, yes, Kamala Harris is doing better in the polls, but there's a long way to go. The polls can shift. The almost certain to vote hasn't actually shifted, and Donald Trump is more popular than he was at either 2016 or 2020 at this point.
Those are interesting data points, Harry Enten. Thank you so much.
Wow. Again, this is something they don't talk about. They're not going to tell you this. Trump is more popular than he's ever been. Okay? Now, what have we heard in the media and from a lot of the doom and gloom conservatives on the internet? It's really been nothing but negativity, right? A lot of trashing Trump. A lot of criticizing of Trump advisors. Oh, Trump shouldn't say this. He shouldn't say that. And it's like, no. Trump is more popular than he's ever been before. What are you talking about? Trump is doing fine, right? What's happening right now is that Kamala Harris is essentially getting back the support that the Democrats lost because people didn't want to vote for Joe Biden, right? Because he was clearly and obviously not capable of continuing to be president. But that doesn't mean that Kamala Harris is some exciting candidate that, is going to result in a record amount of Democrat voters coming out and supporting her overwhelmingly and flipping Trump supporters in droves. That's not what's happening. All these rallies, if you look at the footage, who's showing up to these rallies? The weirdos of the Democrat Party, right? The single cat ladies, okay, with no kids, right? Young thotties. Her base, right? The base of people that you would think would show up to support a so-called black woman running for president, right? That literally are just supporting her because of that. But again, she doesn't have any hardcore supporters that are supporting her because of policy. They're not supporting her because of that. They're supporting her based off emotions and feelings. But yet, again, when you look at Trump and what's happening with him, his campaign is not falling apart. He's only getting better. He's better than he's ever been. Again, if you look at the approval, when you look at the favorability. So I think people got to understand that as of right now, what we're looking at is that we're in a situation where Kamala, she's going to ride this out to the DNC, right? She just denied an interview from the Time magazine. I mean, we know that was going to be a softball interview. She's like, nah, I'm not doing it, right? So she's riding this out to the DNC. And I think that if she continues to run, if she continues to hide, this sugar high is going to go away, right? And it's going to come crashing down very, very, very quickly, because I think that she's going to have a hard time really getting moderate voters and people who actually really think to vote for her if she doesn't actually sit down and do interviews and to answer questions about her policies and her positions, right? I think that that's going to be her Achilles heel. I really do. If she continues to spam this strategy of avoiding the media, avoiding the press, I think that's what's going to happen. And I think people have to take a step back and understand where we're at right now and who's scared and who's not. Kamala's the one that's scared. She's the one running scared. She's the one that has her campaign built on a house of cards. We have to realize that. Trump's campaign has been battle tested, right? He's been battle tested. He's already done hundreds of rallies. People complain, oh, Trump's not doing any rallies this week. Yeah, well, maybe he should take a break, do some other things, focus on some other strategies, because for the next 2 or 3 months straight, yeah, that's what he's going to be doing. He's going to be campaigning his ass off. And trust me, nobody wants to win more than Trump does, because if he doesn't win, he's going to jail, right? So I think people got to understand that, yes, Trump definitely wants to win, and he's going to do what he has to do to win, but I think people got to be patient. I think people have to not panic, take a step back, understand where we're at in proper context, okay? Trump right now is in a much stronger position than he was in 2016, in 2020. And if that is the case, I still believe that if an election was held today, Trump will win. And I think that he will win by decent margins, to be quite honest with you. I really do. I think Trump will run it up, because I really believe that this support for Kamala Harris is fake, right? I really do. I think that there's a lot of response bias. And I think once it comes time to actually really vote, she's not going to have the support and turnout that the mainstream liberal media is predicting that she will. And I think part of the reason why is because people don't really know that much about her, right? And it's hard to go out here and to vote for something you really don't know. But, hey, a lot of people do. I just think ultimately more people are going to vote for something they do know rather than something that they don't know. And what we do know under Trump is that under his administration, the country was in a much better place when it comes to a vast majority of the issues. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.